New Testament 10. What is an apocryphal gospel? First, by Catholics. What is an apocryphal gospel? Well, it's simple. Among the Gospels, there are dozens of stories, perhaps even dozens of stories that were produced in the early centuries of Christians. Among these many Gospels, the Catholic Church, universal, decided to keep four which seemed to him really sources. One knew their authors and they were particularly faithful to the accounts of what had happened. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are in the New Testament. By cons of that, there were many other Gospels. They are called the apocryphal Gospels. It means those who are not kept as inspired to be part of the public revelation. It will continue to be written, this kind of apocryphal gospel, perhaps until the 17th century. For example, the Gospel of Barnabas is believed to be a story, made by a Muslim trying to show that Jesus was a Muslim. Unfortunately, he makes factual mistakes. For example, he puts barrels or something like that. That only existed in his day, so that we could reconstruct the date of its writing. But well before this period there are many Gnostic apocryphal Gnostic Gospels, that means, at one point spreads in East and West, a doctrine that thinks there are two gods. A god of evil, a kind of demon who creates matter and who is certainly the author of the Old Testament. He is violent. Then a god of good, a holy God who aims for man to obtain eternal life in the spirit world. So for this gnosis, the pulpit comes from the devil and the survival of the spirit, separated from the pulpit, comes from God. Among the Gnostic Gospels, one can for example quote one that was recently rediscovered recently, the Gospel of Judas, who presents Judas as being an intimate friend of Jesus, and Jesus begs him to deliver him because that way he can be killed by the Romans, and so he will be able to get rid of this body coming from the devil to reach the true God where his soul must go, eternal life. The doctrine of Plato is also recognized as saying that the body was a prison in which men had been locked up, following an original sin. These Gnostic Gospels date from the 3rd, 4th century. They have obviously been evacuated from writing, they are not real Gospels, and the Church has always affirmed that the same Old Testament God was the New Testament God. Except that he was dealing with hard men, so they had to be educated by their own hardness. Does this mean that all the apocryphal Gospels are false? Well, not necessarily. There is, for example, an apocryphal gospel called the Proto-Gospel of James. Well, he recounts the childhood of Mary and how Mary, at the age of 3, was introduced to the temple by her mother, Saint Anne, and that she dedicated herself to God as a virgin and that she received the teaching of priests. Well, Mary's presentation to the temple, which is not in the canonical real Gospels, is in the faith of the Church. The Catholic Church confirms, she truly believes that Mary dedicated herself to God during her presentation at the temple. That's why at the Annunciation, she only fictitiously married Joseph, because she wanted to be consecrated to God, and she asked the angel, "How would I have a child since I do not know any man?" Whereas she just got engaged, maybe this morning, with Joseph.